I don't really enjoy watching football. It's not fun for me. I know that sounds kind of crazy.
Like, this is the Carson Beck that was projected to be the #1 pick in the draft.
I don't think I've ever seen a prospect like Carson Beck before in my entire life. I mean, I rarely see prospects that enter the year as the potential #1 overall pick and then tank their draft stock all the way to the 3rd round and then boost it back up and then tank it again, then boost it back up, and right when everyone starts to believe in him, he says some controversial stuff that may make teams wary about drafting him. So we're gonna get to it because this is one of the most unique prospects I've ever seen. Before we get to the content, make sure you drop like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help us get to 1 million subscribers. And now that we get all that out of the way, we had so much success on Thanksgiving with the Prize Picks free square. If you followed me on Instagram, then you would have seen my pick of Tyreek Hill, Jonnu Smith, and David Montgomery, which hit for a 5x return. Our square of Josh Jacobs and Devon Achane also converted. And my favorite part about this is getting DMs like this. One of my followers made $225 out of my picks on Thanksgiving. And I got many more DMs of you guys hitting with my picks as well. If you haven't signed up for Prize Picks, click on my link in the description or use my promo code Mikerophone to get $50 when you make an entry of $5 or more. We're going to be making picks for the rest of the season for the NBA and NFL, and I give away my picks for free on Instagram and Snapchat. And thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Entering the 2023 season, Carson Beck was provided with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, being named the Week 1 starter for the Georgia Bulldogs, a team that is a perennial national championship contender. At this point, Carson Beck has already been a 2-time national champion, and fans were excited about his potential. Unlike previous quarterback Stetson Bennett, who primarily benefited from a remarkable supporting cast around him, Carson Beck seemed like a player that could potentially win the Heisman Trophy as a member of the Georgia Bulldogs. And scouts pegged him as a potential #1 overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. Now, this was despite Caleb Williams planning on entering that NFL Draft, but Carson Beck was just that exciting. He had prototypical size, he was 6'4", 220 pounds, was extremely athletic, knew how to go through his reads and his progressions, and was your throwback type of quarterback. He was able to make plays with his legs, but he didn't depend on them too much. He thrived under play action, and he was very successful under pressure. He also had an uncanny ability of making the right read at the right time, whether it's checking down to his halfback whenever nothing was there, or fitting balls into tight windows, which is very advanced for a college quarterback. So in his first season under center, Carson Beck was as good as advertised. He led the Georgia Bulldogs to a 13-1 record, completed 72% of his passes, threw for 3,941 passing yards, 24 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions, rushed for 4 touchdowns, and even dominated Florida State in the Orange Bowl. But granted, Florida State had some injury issues. But as a result of the loaded 2024 quarterback class, Carson Beck elected to stay for his redshirt senior season on the Georgia Bulldogs. And this made a lot of sense, man. I mean, Caleb Williams was going to go #1 overall, and he was a former Heisman Trophy winner. And then you had Jaden Daniels that won the 2023 Heisman Trophy, so he was a shoo-in to be #2 overall. Then you had Drake May, who scouts were just obsessed with, primarily because of his potential. Teams were clamoring to trade up for Drake May during the NFL Draft, whether it was the Minnesota Vikings or the New York Giants. Then you had JJ McCarthy, and then Bo Nix, who was supposed to be a 2nd-round prospect but ended up being selected in the top 15. There's no question about it. The 2024 NFL Draft's quarterback class is just loaded. So returning to school for one more year, and just seeing how things shook out, and having to compete with the likes of Shedeur Sanders and Quinn Ewers to become the #1 overall pick was a good decision for Carson Beck. But there were some things that he just couldn't have anticipated. One was the fact that his offense was going to get significantly weaker. Gone were some of his top targets like Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers. And as a result, Carson Beck started out the season struggling. Throughout the beginning of the season, all the way till November 9th, 2024, Carson Beck threw 17 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. His draft stock plummeted completely, going from a player that was once seen as the #1 overall overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft to a player that was a 3rd round pick in the 2025 NFL draft. Very similar to the fate that Spencer Rattler suffered a year ago. But on top of that, Carson Beck would go viral for some of his decisions off of the field. And some of these are just hilarious. I mean, check out my man on Snapchat, sending a shirtless selfie saying it was nice meeting you last night. You gotta slide back when you can. Look, this isn't the only one. I mean, Carson Beck sends a lot of these, bro. It doesn't matter if he gets caught red-handed and goes viral. I mean, take a look at this man's riz right here. You're right, that's my B. It's probably because I'm so lost in how good you look. Not trying to be weird, but especially when your tits are out, gets my on hard immediately. Or how about this one? How about I show you this package and we'll see how fast your calendar opens up. Now look, man, these don't matter. I mean, honestly, like, he's a kid in college, but the fact that these get leaked out also gives you an idea that he doesn't understand how famous he truly is. But no team is gonna look at these and say, okay, we're not drafting Carson Beck because of it. Honestly, the main concern with Carson Beck was the fact that he just hasn't been good to start the season, and everything would change from November 9th and on. Since then, Carson Beck has been playing out of his mind. He's thrown 11 touchdowns and 0 interceptions in his last 3 games, and as a result, analysts are saying stuff like this.
Is he starting to play his way back up the draft boards? The way he's played the past couple weeks, like, this is the Carson Beck that was projected to be the #1 pick in the draft.
Now look, man, just take a look at the opponents that Carson Beck has been facing off against recently. His most impressive game of the season came against number 7th ranked Tennessee, where he threw 2 touchdowns and over 340 yards. Then he faced off against Massachusetts, threw 4 touchdowns and almost 300 yards. And then he threw for 5 touchdowns and nearly 300 yards against Georgia Tech. And through it all, Carson Beck's draft profile has changed significantly. He went from a quarterback that seemingly almost always made the right decision to a quarterback that has trouble making decisions when defenders are closing in. His accuracy and ball placement diminish when he's forced to throw on the move. He has above average arm talent, but he's hesitant to test some throwing windows, and efficiency against pressure package has plummeted this season. This is according to Bleacher Report, and I honestly don't think any of these are too problematic, but I think the one thing he said that ruined everything about his draft stock made him go from a potential 1st round pick to a player that'll probably get picked in the 2nd round or maybe even in the 3rd round was this.
Well, I don't watch football, so I know that sounds kind of crazy, but I don't really enjoy watching football. It's not fun for me. So if I watch that game, like, I'm not just going to be able to sit there and enjoy it. I'm going to stress myself out the whole entire time.
Bro, listen, I don't care if you don't watch tape, but never tell the media that you don't watch tape. I don't care if you have to lie. Lie! Jamarcus Russell lied. Johnny Manziel lied. Yeah, they got caught eventually, but hell, at least they got drafted in the 1st round and made a bag as a result of it. Don't tell people that you don't like to study tape when it's your job to study tape. I mean, it's not that hard. It really isn't. And I think this is what makes me feel like Carson Beck is potentially going to be a colossal bust if he gets drafted too early. It's not because of his athletic ability. It's because whenever a quarterback tells you he doesn't watch tape, it implies that he doesn't care about his job. He doesn't care about being a quarterback. And if he's been this inconsistent in college, what makes you think that all of a sudden, once he becomes an NFL draft pick, he's going to step it up? I don't know. It's really a shame because this young man has all the ability in the world, but it's really interesting because he'll do these things where he's considered to be a top draft pick as a result of his performance in 2023. He decides to come back for 2024. He plays terribly to start 2024, but then he turns it around against one excellent team and 2 mediocre teams. Then he tells the world that he doesn't watch tape, and then he tanks his value even more. And mind you, he's saying this before the SEC championship, probably the most important game of his career. At the end of the day, I've seen many prospects like Carson Beck before. He got comparisons to Eli Manning when Eli Manning was coming out of college. In my opinion, I think the accurate comparison here is more like Jay Cutler minus the rocket of an arm, just in terms of demeanor. But this is a young man whose entire draft stock could completely change based upon how Georgia finishes this season, especially if he plays well in some meaningful games. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think about Carson Beck? Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.